Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. In this episode, we are joined by Moti Hamou, who is the founder of the micro movement method, a revolutionary somatic approach that blends movement, breath practice, and microdosing in a holistic practice to help us connect to our body, our mind, and promote overall well-being that we get to learn about in this episode. Before that though, this episode is brought to you by Riverside. Riverside is an online studio platform designed to record, edit, and share high-quality podcasts built for growth from day one. Powered by AI, you can record in 4K video or from your phone and automatically remove filler words such as ums, as, you knows, and many other speech patterns. Built for human conversations, Riverside makes it super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. Ready to start your podcast and share your message with the world? Check out the link in the show note description to learn more about Riverside and get a 15%. Yes, that is a 15% discount off a paid subscription. Now, let's dive into today's episode with Moti. Moti, welcome to Raising Consciousness today. How are you doing?
Good, Luke. Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm good.
You're welcome. First question for you. Who are you and what do you do?
Wow. I guess that's the most sophisticated question because it always changes. Our identity changes, shifts. We change according to our reality. But just for the sake of simplicity, my name is Moti Hamou. I'm 42 years old. I live in Tel Aviv, Israel. And since I was this small, I was always moving and I was always struggling into figuring out more about myself, I guess. And it brought me to very strange corners and very different paths. And eventually, I didn't stop. I didn't stop at any point. I started with martial arts, like maybe almost 20 years of my life. And I could go to that path, but I didn't stop there. I went into yoga practices, 11 more years, 12 more years, and I didn't stop there. I could teach handstands, I could teach movement, I could go to, breath practice, ice bathing, so many different fields of interest that could be an occupation. But I always continue to redefine and find more tools I never said this is me, right? Like what water says when they enter a cup. This is not my shape. That's roughly something I can say about myself. And eventually it all boiled down to this path of concept of a method called micro movement, which is a combination of movement, breath practice, microdosing, and exposure to elements, which sounds kind of strange for most people. But when you find out the logic behind it, it really is so obvious. It should be so obvious that everyone should understand the concept.
And we will dive straight into that in a moment or two. Really fascinated by the work that you do. But my next question was, before we dive into the concept, like, why does the work that you do matter? Like, why should someone who's watching this on YouTube or listening on whatever podcast platform of their choice, why should they stay around and listen to our conversation today?
These are tools that can help us. And I've learned from the best teachers I found, combines totally different worlds, right? Science and spirituality and modern physical science and, modern psychology. And it all boils down to more simplified tools for self-inquiry, for improving our life in other dimensions, where it's very easy. I see it many times that things go overboard more than they should. If people go into fitness, then they go all the way in. If they do marathons, they do ultra marathons. And there's sometimes the imbalances are just because we don't have a holistic picture. And I think this is something the method brings. And with that, it brings like more, you're gonna know. It's not something that is being imposed on you as take it as a fact. Like, this is the question, these are the tools, you'll figure out the answer. I can't say it for you.
Yeah, no, definitely resonate with that. Like within health in general, I feel like there's these kind of extremes that people push themselves to. You know, maybe that's to see what they're capable of. Like, okay, I think in short doses, like, you know, if you were training for an ultra marathon or whatever, then, you know, for like a short period of time in your life, but it's almost like people then like that becomes their life, if that makes sense. That's like then like what they do, and so they just live in this extreme state, which can actually put a lot of stress on ourselves and on our bodies, etc. So trying to find this kind of middle balance and like the holistic approach to health is definitely something that resonates with myself, you know. So in terms of your method, like talk us through that. Talk us through the components of it. You mentioned there, I think you said breathwork, breath control, microdosing, obviously movement. Yeah, let's start there. Like talk us through your method and
Yeah.
and
So,
and each pillar.
yeah. And again, like most people know instinctively or generally the connection between any physical practice and our mood, right? That's something that most people can really relate to, at least. But it goes way, way deeper. Our physical chemistry, our physical balance, our alignment of the muscle and skeleton is like the basic of our sensations and our emotions afterwards. Right? If you're in a deep physical misalignment, your life is not going to be easy. And the movement and the physical practice is a way to investigate, basically a way to investigate and also a way to balance back. And at that point, you could definitely see so many people go also overboard. If it's with yoga, with movement, you want to be extra flexible, extra muscular, less muscle mass, more muscle. Like it's really, when you stay on the physical level, it's also endless, but it's like you've I don't want to say maximized, but you've kind of fulfill the potential in your physical world, and then it should go somewhere else. For example, you can be a bit more concentrated, a bit more empathetic to the world, more, if you're more concentrated, then it's going to be influencing your relationships and your career and other dimensions, of course. Energy levels, sometimes you have too much, sometimes you have not enough. So also balancing that. So that's generally the movement. Of course, breath and movement is connected because you cannot have breath without movement. It's internal movement. You don't automatically see it, but it's generation of energy, basically. It's also a very powerful technique. There are so many different ones, but I try to keep with what it does, what this specific breath technique does to you at the moment. If you're too energetic, or if you're not energetic enough, if you want to get relaxed before you sleep, after you sleep, they're more like, again, it's what you're trying to achieve and what the specific technique is going to do for you. And then the microdosing, which is huge and of course still something very experimental in most of the world, although it's been around since the late 60s. But the idea is to get, and you can get much more, but I'll boil it down to the basics first, and then you can grow from that, is enhanced sensory perception and increased neuroplasticity. So it's pretty much saying that you're a bit more aware, a bit more sharp, or a bit more noticing both external sensations, sight, vision, hearing, and also internal sensations, and also emotional sensation. The emotional sensation, the emotional effect in our physical body. So it's pretty much signals that we receive from the world, from our senses. And when they're a little bit more enhanced, not much more enhanced, when they're much more enhanced, it's a bit too hard to learn the lesson sometimes. But when it's slightly enhanced, then you can really everyone becomes much more almost like a professional athlete in a sense, because they're more aware. So the combination between the movement, the breath practice, and the microdosing really binds together only when you do know what you're doing and you're doing it correctly. The microdosing process is very complex. We're actually doing an online course just because most people don't really understand and grasp the concept correctly. And then when you understand how to incorporate it in your practice, then you start to dive deep in.
Give us the beginner, like the 101 kind of integration. Like how one would integrate this in a beginner level in their daily routine, daily life.
Right. So the ideal would be that you would start with years of physical, mental, spiritual practice, and only then get to the, I would say we can call it both advanced class or both beginners class. I'll explain. But first, when you have a solid ground of understanding and connectedness to your body, that's amazing. And then when you control that, then adding the microdosing is giving you like superpowers. On the other hand, it can also be a shortcut for some people. I would also say that the microdosing as a method is a tool which is not a must. It's optional, and technically, if you can learn, or anyone can learn the lesson without the help of the microdosing, then you're a gifted student. It's not I'm not indoctrinated to one approach. It's just I find it as an amazing tool, as I find breath practice as amazing tools, and ice baths, and headstands, and free diving, and many other tools and activities I'm using. None of them is a must, but specifically the microdosing has the enhanced neuroplasticity, changing our default mode network, our identity. Actually, that's what builds our identity, our habits, our patterns of behaviors and beliefs. Which is huge, because when I'm talking about patterns of behaviors and beliefs, I also talk about posture, our breath patterns, the way you put your pants when you wake up, how we brush our teeth. It's part of our nervous system. Even that can be changed. And if it's a very old habit, it's much harder to change it. And then you see definitely how the microdosing helps to break the pattern and learn, or more like relearn, something you've learned before, which becomes much harder as you grow older. If you take a 10-year-old and teach him something new, it's easy because it's a blank slate and he just learns it. But when you're 60, when you're 50, even when you're 40, and you're trying to learn something new, you actually need to break many old habits and old patterns. That becomes really hard. And yeah, it's down from movement. That's how I see it, how I view it. Of course, it goes deeper. Eventually, it goes to deeper spirituality and more meditation, but I never push it. I think it should just naturally come for people. That's what happened to me, for example.
So let's go through each pillar. So if we start with the movement pillar, within the approach and what you teach, is that any type of movement, or do you have specific movement patterns, specific movement styles that you share with your clients and the classes that you run?
Right. So I try not to, I don't like when it becomes just like copies of me. It's very, you see it in many other methods and studios and teachers. It just becomes copies of some. And I do try to avoid it, but also copying is a form of learning, and eventually you're gonna develop your own style. Um, I do keep it more about the aim. So I'll give you an example. I'll start with an analogy, and then I'll explain the movement, for example, for that. So our body is a little bit like a radio transistor, a super sophisticated one, right? And has also vision and many other things. But it has the box, right? The frame. Like it's like our skin and like our bones and like internal organs. It has, I have no idea what the transistor has inside, the speaker, some chips, whatever. And then if it's broken, it's like a broken bone or something. So it needs to be, of course, not broken and aligned pretty much. And it's really, really similar with the structure of our bone alignment and muscles. And then you have the fine tuning. You tune to a specific frequency or specific channel. You don't really listen to the radio. You listen to the radio station through the radio transmitter, right? And it's kind of the same with us. Our personality, our mind is what we are, and we just transmit it through the body. So for that, we need a physical alignment, just a basic physical alignment. Also, the antenna, you want it to be correct, so you're going to listen correctly. So for that, we need some basic physical alignment. Super simple, forward folding, arching, twisting, and side bends, just as a point of reference, just to examine the body and see, am I aligned today? Or what forces have changed me somewhere? So if you have a lot of stress and workload, usually people would feel it on their shoulders. If they're grieving, also the chest usually and the heart area is closed. People that are super open to experience, usually their hips are tilted forward, even before their body is a bit more like spaghetti-like. And we all have tendencies, and it's good, but the basic balance should be there. So it's the exercise could change a lot. It could be more like animalistic movement. It could be more physical. If it's young, athletic people, it's going to be one thing. And if it's going to be 50-year-old therapists that have never moved, it's going to be something totally else. We're working with so many different audiences, so-called, and they cannot have the same workout or the same practice.
And is this and so I like that because it's like personalized. My approach to health is very much a personalized one. And so is this on the movement side a daily practice that they do, like once they've got their exercises dialed in? Is this something you recommend that they do daily?
Well, it's an awareness practice, and we want to stay aware. And when you develop the awareness, even for our posture and breath, once you get aware and notice it, for example, now I can sit like this, but as long as I create awareness and I have comfort in my pose, and the muscles are actually working less, and the radio is not broken, so you just keep the awareness. And some people need a lot of work because, I don't know, they have some imbalance in their body, so they need more work, and some are definitely need less, and they are on maintenance mode, so-called. So it's different.
So on the movement piece, does that replace? Let's just say somebody comes to you and they are into fitness generally already, go to the gym a couple of times a week, do some cardio, etc. Does this support what they're already doing?
Well, it depends what they're really doing.
Right. Okay.
So it's not that I'm against the gym or anything or any other physical practice, but we need to be honest with ourselves. One person would go to the gym because his doctor told him you're going to get a heart attack if you're not going to change your ways. Someone else is going to the gym to socialize. Someone else goes to the gym to lose weight because he's overweight. Someone goes to the gym to get muscle mass to be ranked higher with his friends or to get girls, right? So we have a lot of different needs that motivate us. And I do try to get a bit more than just that. It's very easy to make super sexy movement classes and handstands and, super flexibility and strong and body weight. It's super easy to fall into that tempting category. But I decided not to stay there. Just because it's fleeting. It's nothing. It's not really a thing. It's just, satisfying our primal instincts, our animalistic ways, and we need it we need it in some level, but eventually move on. Okay, if we go to gym, someone goes to gym and he works out, he got fit. What else? More muscle mass? Maybe you want to go to take steroids now because there are bigger guys than you. Go leaner. You were 12% body fat. You want to get to 8. When is gonna be enough? It's just consuming and it's unbalanced. And or if it's balanced and you're just going to maintenance, then expand it. Like, see how it affects your energy levels. See how it could be sustainable, because most people train until they can't, and they're like, oh, I was training 5 times a week in the gym. I was lifting so much, but now my shoulders are gone and I can't. So awareness in practice, and it's mostly awareness of ego, because what makes us push so much more than our body can handle it is usually it's like less of awareness or just ego-driven workout. So I think it's a big part of what I'm doing, to be honest with ourselves and just figure out why. And then someone could stay and continue his gym workout or adjust it. But it's definitely more than just the physical plane.
No, it definitely sounds like it's so the awareness piece sounds like, and the awareness of our body sounds like such of a major part of this. And I think that most people, when they do go to the gym, I've probably been guilty of it as well, although I don't go to the gym, I do home workouts. Anyway, I'm digressing there. Or go for a run or something. Like, how much are they aware of their body when they are, doing, I don't know, a deadlift or whatever it is, or are they just going through the motion of the movement, and like having that body awareness? I think when we are doing movement and in life in general, I think is there's a lot that we can learn there. So it definitely sounds like it's more than just movement, and the awareness piece is a big piece. Moving on to the breath, the breath control, breath work, etc. Talk to us the importance about that.
So our mood, our thoughts, immediately being affected and being translated to the breathing patterns we have. Sympathetic, parasympathetic, stress, flight or fight, rest and digest mode. Immediately it's shown on the way we breathe. And it's an amazing way to manipulate or so-called the body. It's the immediate connection between our mind, our consciousness, and our physical body. And you do see that a lot of very high-level athletes also do know how to use their breath correctly. And we also know it kind of instinctively. If you see someone angry, it's like screaming and so on, you come to them like, calm down, right? It's almost, we know how to lower the energy. We know what we should do. And when we consciously do it, we calm down the body. Even if you see, sometimes I see the mammal within us or the dog within us. If like a dog owner sees his dog and the dog is barking, what it comes and like pets him and calms him down. So we have that dog inside of us. It's the older part of our brains, what we can't control sometimes so easily. That's how we can use the breath. It's an amazing tool. Of course, you've got many yogic breath practices, pranayama, like
What's your
Kapalabhati.
favorite? Do you have a favorite or one that you go to the most often?
A favorite. Well, I'm tempted to say the Wim Hof method because I'm doing the ice baths daily for since 2016. My favorite is when I'm riding my motorcycle and I try to count the lowest number of breaths on the road. So, for example, if I'm driving 50 minutes, and I can do it in 40 breaths. So it's like very long inhales, like 30-second inhale as much as I can and 30 seconds exhale. So I have to be also concentrated to remember the number of breaths and also reduce them and also not to crash into a car. So yeah, motorcycle breathing. It's my...
I haven't heard of that one. Haven't heard of that one. But you mentioned a good point there in terms of there are lots of different breathwork methodologies, I guess. Sometimes that could, like, when somebody wants to maybe get into breathwork because they understand that actually this can help me to regulate my nervous system, become more, and all of the other different benefits, etc. They do have like Wim Hof method over here, pranayama over here, like all these different methods. What would your tips or words of wisdom be to somebody who is listening to this and they're like, we'll just start entering like the breathwork practice space and have all these different practices that they can choose from, and maybe that in themselves, is making them feel a bit overwhelmed of like, which one's better, and then they judge them, right? As like good or, this one's better than that one, and et cetera, et cetera. So, what would your words of wisdom be there? We'll get back talking to Moti in just one moment, but before we do so, I would just like to take a quick break to mention Lark. Lark is the self-cleaning bottle and purification system brand that uses UVC LED light to eliminate up to 99.99% of hidden nasties in our water, such as lead, chlorine, and many, many others. But not only that, it improves the taste of the water that we drink. I notice a difference between the water that I drink when I use my Lark pitcher, which I have right here, as you can see, nice and clean, and the Lark Pure Fizz bottle, which I have right here, compared to water that hasn't been filtered by one of those products. Plus, by using Lark, we are promoting sustainability, ending single-use plastic. This Black Friday, you can find the perfect gift for your loved ones and get the best deals of the year by heading over to Lark's website. You can save 30% when you spend more than $200, save 20% when you spend more than $120, and 10% on orders less than $100. All you need to do is head to the link in the show note description to get your hands on these offers and your Lark Pure Fizz bottle, Lark Pitcher water filter. Terms and conditions may apply. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
Well, it would be back to the question, understand what does it do. to you for real. Because especially with Wim Hof breaths, you can see it. Some people need like 10 breaths and some people need 50 to get the same dizziness effect, right? So let's call it an objective fact that when you can get dizziness, it's a change of your CO2-O2 ratio in the blood. And it really is different for people. So you kind of want to know what does it do for you. If there is like breath of fire, does it give you a boost in energy or not? Or box breathing or 4-6-8, whatever. Does it really help you calm down and fall asleep? Do you feel that it changes if people have anxiety? Does it lower your anxiety, even if it's for 10 minutes? Does it do it? So, like, and then you would find that there are a few different methods that are very similar with small adjustments. So, you're like, that's the idea. That's what happens. I changed my chemistry. I changed the heart rate, right? Listening to our heart rate and noticing the blood flow in different places and the heart rate in different places through the bloodstream, for example. So
No,
yeah,
interesting.
it's very easy to like fall in love with a method. Like you have a holotropic breath practice. Rebirthing is something big here. Wim Hof, of course. Some people do it from Kundalini or other Kundalini awakening, which is also pretty much the same. It's very, very similar. So, also differentiate between the marketing sticks
Yeah.
and what's really behind.
Microdosing. So I would say that this is a part of your practice approach that most people might not have come across beforehand. Obviously movement is quite self-evident. Breath work with the work of Wim Hof and other
The
practices,
movement,
pranayama,
by the
etc.
way, yeah,
Yeah.
I have to, it's important because I think that the movement just by itself, the word movement means nothing because it's so general that everything
True.
falls under that category. It's almost like Peter Pan. They don't want to grow up. They're a bit confused sometimes. So the reason I do use the word movement because the idea is micro is not small movement, it's microdosing and movement. That's the idea behind. And the idea is that any practice you do when you're in a state of enhanced sensory perception and enhanced neuroplasticity is something that could be much deeper. So
No,
yeah, just
interesting. Good
usually I
point.
don't
Good
use
point.
the word movement as a thing alone.
Right. Okay. No, that does make sense. On the microdosing piece, if there is someone at the end of this listening, watching, etc., I know you explained it a bit in the beginning, but maybe let's just say they're still a bit like, don't fully grasp it. How would
Okay.
you
Well,
explain it in a way to help people to grasp it, and then to
right.
grasp the whole approach and concept together as one?
Yeah. You said that they don't grasp it. I talked to one therapist a while ago, and he said you're so far away from most people that you need to go back like 20 stages. So first of all, there are many. It's something that should not be looked upon casually. It's huge. It's a big tool. I have so many stories to tell and share. It's unbelievable, but it also could be dangerous. So microdosing is a subcontent under the world of psychedelics, and specifically classical psychedelics. They're also known as serotonergic tryptamines, which means that these are the psychedelics that bind into the serotonin receptors. I know it's a lot of mumbo jumbo and hooey. Some people prefer the logical explanation. I say get the logical, get the science, but also you need to experience it on yourself. Like with the breath practice, you have to know what it does to you, right? And how exactly. So classical psychedelics are mostly magic mushrooms as psilocybin and lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD or acid, which was the semi-synthesized from the agate fungus in the late 30s by Dr. Albert Hoffman. And as we know, eventually in the 60s, exploded all through the West. Over 15 million Americans used LSD before it went outlaw, and ever since, at least 500,000 in 2022, there was research that 5 million Americans used it. So hundreds of millions of people have tried classical psychedelics from the 60s, and there is a lot of information. There is a lot of citizen science, so-called. Also, I would like to mention Dr. Jim Fadiman, he has done amazing work on collecting information about usage of classical psychedelics and microdosing. Also, of course, Dr. Paul Stamets, which is a famous mycologist. So it's kind of weird. We talked about yoga and movement, and then and then breathing, and then Wim Hof, and then I bring some scientists. Yeah, it all boils down together. And so we've got the classical psychedelics, which usually the classical normal dose would make you hallucinate, which is not true. It's not hallucination. It's just things we don't really understand, but it doesn't mean they're not true. And 1 second, sorry. Okay. So the normal dose usually is very high. We have hallucinations. We could have an amazing, beautiful trip connected to nature, seeing, being one with nature and spiritual experiences, etc. But also that if you use a microdose, which is a 10th to a 20th compared to a normal dose, very, very low dose, it could be sub-perceptual or barely perceptual. I'll get into that. That's a big important point. But you do notice improvement either in the long term or the short term when you're slightly more enhanced, slightly more focused, and slightly more energetic. Still, we're not talking about moving walls or super special colors, but you feel that your daily activity is enhanced and not impaired, right? So again, this is something that you have to know for yourself, because the dosage vary dramatically. Just as with the breathing, I gave an example. Some person needs 10 breaths to get dizzy, some need 50. Same thing with microdosing. It could be for one person, let's talk psilocybin, it could be 0.1 grams, and for some people it will be 0.35, right? So it's almost 4 times as much to get the same effect. And it varies drastically. I would also mention Dr. Harriet Witt from University of Chicago. She did an amazing research in 2022 about microdosing, because it's very hard to prove it scientifically. And she showed that even in very low doses, there is an increased activity, in neuronal activity with fMRI scans. So even when you don't feel it, there is a benefit. And then it gets even more interesting, because some people just are not aware of the effect, but the effect is there. I see it from the side all the time. People say, no, I don't feel it. There's no effect. It's like, this is very strong for you. Like I can see it, but it's like we have a heartbeat, but not everyone can notice their heartbeat. It doesn't mean it's not there. And when you need to learn how to notice these subtle effects, and then you learn how to read your body and eventually your emotions, or even intuition. That's even more subtle.
Interesting. You referred to there throughout that, like how the effects and I guess the benefits of microdosing is sometimes, I think, difficult to prove through science, right? Or like the scientific evidence. So, what is your scientific academic research behind this? Like, where did you like learn this from? And I guess with like the whole approach, the movement piece, the breath piece, etc. What is the scientific academic research that you've done for those out there that are more kind of science bros, right? Like they need the science to believe something. Like what is that? Where would you point to people to? Talk to us a little bit about that before we move on.
So first of all, there's a lot of information on the website, micromovement.com, both on psychedelics and microdosing. I was exposed to this world in a very late stage in my life, only when I was 37 or 38. So 5 years. Before that, I was super like, no, we know nothing, really, really like pure practicing daily for so many years. And then slowly I got open to the concept that psychedelics can really take you somewhere deeper. And I started with learning the risks, which there are risks. These are very, very powerful tools, and and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to help everyone, and especially if you don't know how to use them. So the research was done actually as part of my work. It was even paid for. And because of my movement and movement yoga background, I got to experiment and to research it from that point. So you want me to refer to a specific research or something more general?
Yeah, I mean, like if people, from what I've kind of seen within, let's just say, health, people trying to better themselves, right? You have those that very much need the data and the science to like believe anything, right? Like if there's no science or data behind it, like they're calling it out. So yeah, if you have an example of academic research or a paper that you could share, or maybe both, where you would point people to if they do want to look at the science behind
Okay, so first of all,
this.
there are many. I mentioned one with Dr. Harriet DeWitt. Anything that is related to Dr. Jim Fadiman, of course, is the work he's done since the 70s. It's amazing. I have a specific article about microdosing that also sums up a lot of research. Let me think something. There's so many, actually not so many about microdosing. It's much, much harder. There is a reason why it's much harder to conduct research, because usually microdosing is done for a few months and clinical research has to be done in a lab. So it's much, much, much more expensive. And when it's done for a few months, you can't put people in a lab for a few months. So most of the research is not clinically proven, and at least not for a long period of time. And that's where I'm going back to know it on yourself. There is so much information about the dosages and about the substance and when to take and how to take and protocols. Eventually, when you figure out, like breath, this puts me in a state where I'm too agitated, and it could be for two people, same dose. I've seen with my eyes, person takes 0.4 grams of not a very strong psychedelic mushroom, and the effect was same as an ayahuasca trip. Okay, there were specific incidents before that, but the differences could be so vast. Even the research says that the individual differences are huge. So
So on that point,
anyhow,
sorry, Mike, for interrupting there. I just want to
yeah,
pick up on that point. So like, how would people, or how do you recommend people do this in a safe manner? Because it sounds like a tool that we that's in our toolkit, so to speak. But one, as you said, that has the has dangers, that has the negative consequences and effects. So like, yeah, if someone's just came across this podcast and they're curious about it, like what would be like that first step, or how would they enter this world in a
right.
safe manner?
Yeah. So of course, first of all, I've done the online course for it. We have the microdosing basics course. It's 29 video courses, short, one by one, just to understand. It's also to reduce harm, but also to understand the full potential of it. It has much higher potential than most people think, because usually people think about spiritual awakening and very deep spiritual practices when they go into high doses. And it's not that easy to to integrate the lesson from a single experience. While the microdosing, which is something that you do for weeks and months, works on our really root and basic behavior patterns. Like if you want to become more conscientious or decide that you want to change some other element in your personality, it's a daily struggle. But then when you start to notice it, you cannot unnotice it. Like with awareness of posture, right? When you start noticing that you're slouching, and then oh, amazing. Now it's easier, and my breath is easier and more full. So yeah, we have the online course, of course. There's a lot of other resources online just to start safe. I would say always start slow, start low, and gradually increase. If it's not, doesn't mean that more is better necessarily. And really find the potential, because many people think that microdosing, yeah, just take a little bit of shroom and everything is, I have less depression. Something like quite simplistic, and it could be that, but I suggest that it's the work we're doing, right? It doesn't mean that it's automatically going to make us improve, although it does kind of happen many times. But it can, if you want to become more friendly or more more friendly or more hardworking, it would work both ways. It depends where your focus is. So
Interesting.
yeah. Yeah.
Moti, what's one thing that you want to leave our audience with today that maybe we didn't speak about, that
Oh,
is going to help them understand everything that we've spoken about?
how long we have? All right. Um, I'll few stories. So in the research I've done a few years ago, I found out that one of the benefits of microdosing, and it's not proven yet, but there is already a company that patented it, microdosing LSD for Alzheimer's disease. And my father is 83, my mom is 80. My grandfather died 20 years ago with Alzheimer's. So I was like, whoa, we might be onto something. And I come from a very conservative family. No one is doing anything like that. But it took me like 3 months, and eventually I explained them. I didn't convince them. I just explained them the situation. And I told them probably there's going to be medication a few years from now. But the idea is to prevent. And for over a year now, they're doing a very, very slow, super slow process of microdosing and pausing and integrating and seeing a change. Very slow. Just to prevent, hopefully, to prevent Alzheimer's disease or anything that is related to dementia. It's not scientifically proven. It's not still, the science is not there yet. But sometimes you just see that you see where the winds are going. And when you see you're not harming, then I'm willing to take small risks.
Yeah,
At
interesting.
least for myself. Something
Interesting.
else, I think another approach, how to approach and how to see microdosing, is I can compare it to anabolic steroids, which of course, I do not promote, and I don't think it's a good idea. But so you've seen the movie Icarus about doping in the Olympics?
I haven't, no. I haven't seen that. Okay.
So bottom line, that maybe except figure skating for women, everyone is doping with anabolic steroids or other illegal substances, or illegal in the Olympics. Pretty much everyone. It's kind of crazy. But what you can say is that they're not the best athletes with the best coaches and the best budgets and and knowledge and science behind them, and the best teams and the best genetics from each country. They all have that, and working very, very hard. They reach to some physical peak, and then they get even higher results when they use the anabolic steroids. This is a little bit how I approach microdosing. We need to do the hard work. We need to have the grounding and our basic practice. We need to go within. We need to think about practicing beyond the ego and see the full picture. And then you can get even, take it to a higher level.
Moti, thank you for your time today. It's been fascinating learning about your micro movement method. Where do people go if they want to learn more about this and experience it all for themselves?
Amazing. Thanks, Luke. Micromovement.com, that's one option. Also on Instagram, micromovement method. You can be interested just in the microdosing or in the movement, or not in the microdosing. It's just part of it. Make sure it's legal in your country. And if not, you can at least get educated about it. And probably in this coming future, it's going to be illegal in some form. Instagram or just the website. There is an online course in Hebrew, in Spanish, and in English.
Amazing. I will link that all in the show notes below. But yeah, thank you for your time today. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks for your time. Brilliant. Bye-bye.
I hope that you've enjoyed my conversation today with Moti Hamou. What are you taking away from this episode, and what positive changes are you going to make in your life as a result? Leave a comment or review below this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you get your episodes from. I read every single comment and review and appreciate you being here. I look forward to sharing the next episode of the show with you really, really soon. See you there.